Hello and welcome back to Reach Students, where we're continuing to bring you skeptical talks and our life skills seminars online while you're at home. Today we're going to talk about emotional resilience. My name is Pamela McGinty, and whether you're watching on Vula or if you're on our YouTube channel, I need you to, first of all, try to find the document that we have attached to this video. We'll need that today because we'll be looking at some worksheets as we just discuss the idea of emotional resilience. So please find that, get together a pad of paper and a pencil or pen and get ready to work because this is a workshop. We'll be looking at emotional resilience, we'll be looking at your life and how you're doing, and then we'll be looking at some areas that you can improve to grow your resilience. The first thing that we need to do is to define emotional resilience. Some of you might be familiar with that term, but to others, maybe not. So what we're going to look at is what your personal ability is to be able to adapt to and recover from emotional crisis, stressful times, even just a tough day. And right now we're all having a lot of those, I think, during lockdown. So that's why this topic is so relevant. What we need to do is we need to look at just how we're doing. How are you feeling? And to do that, we're going to look at 7 different areas of our life and kind of evaluate where we're standing in each of those areas. We're going to do that with an exercise we call the Wheel of Life. If you've done our time management seminars, then you're familiar with this, and this will be a great way for you to reevaluate right now and to look at your time management again from a different perspective because you're at home and things are definitely different today than they were when you were on campus. So look at each of these 7 areas of life, and I'd like for you to evaluate them and write a number from 1 to 10 next to each of these words. So since you're probably not able to print out those worksheets, just on the paper that you have, write down those 7 areas of life and then rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being you're doing very poorly, you feel like it's a really difficult area of your life right now, and number 10 would be that it's fantastic and everything is going great. You may wonder in that area of faith what we're really asking. If you're a Christian, then what we're asking is, how well are you letting your beliefs, what you say you believe, actually affect your lifestyle, affect your choices? And how well are you molding your life to honor that belief? That holds true for any religion that you might follow. How well are you following what you say you believe? And if you're not following any religion, you might say that that area is not relevant to you. But what we'd like for you to evaluate is just to look at what your belief system is based on. Everyone has a foundation for their worldview. What is your belief system? And how well are you following that and letting that mold your life? So that's what you would evaluate on a scale of 1 to 10. We're going to look at all the other areas of our life and do the same. So we can pause for just a moment here and just fill those out, and I'll be back in a moment. Now that we have evaluated these areas of our life, we want to put them onto the wheel graph. You'll see examples of this in the material in the PDF, but of course, few of you are going to be able to print that out. So on your sheet of paper, just draw a circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you want to draw around a glass or something or a cup, that can help. But don't worry about it being perfect. It's just for you to work with. So draw a circle. From the center of that circle, draw a line upward, and then kind of make a stick figure. Might be the easiest way to make 7 quadrants of that. So draw some arms and legs and then divide the area between the arms and the legs quite evenly, and you end up with something that looks sort of like what we have in our example. Now take each of the numbers that you have for the areas of your life and plot that along the line that runs from the center to the outside of the circle. So do that with each of the areas of your life. Plot them on your wheel that you've hand drawn. And then when you finish with that, connect each of those X's or dots together. And you're going to form a shape in the center of that circle like you've seen in the examples. Now that you've done that, I want you to look at the shape that you've drawn. How similar is it to the circle? Is it quite a round shape, or is it really irregular? You can see in my example, it's quite irregular. So what we want to ask you is, how well could your wheel roll? As you look at the area of health, how did you feel you were doing emotionally? Some of us are much more resilient than others naturally. It's kind of like physical mobility. Some of us are more flexible than others. But the good news is, just like a gymnast can build their flexibility, we can also build our emotional resilience. One of the ways that we can do that is to break it down into the different characteristics that emotionally resilient people have, and we can work on each of those areas. The first area that we'll be looking at is just very practical. How well are you treating yourself? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating well? Are you keeping your physical body happy so that your emotional self can also benefit from that? The next area I want to look at is emotional awareness. Some people are more naturally aware than others of their emotions, but it's something, again, that we can learn and we can grow at our skill in it. So I want to show you an illustration that maybe will help you understand. So I have here a very full bottle of water. Now watch it carefully because I'm going to ask you a question. Watch the bottle. Okay, now my question is, why did water come out of the bottle? Most of you are going to have a reply that's something like, well, because you shook it. Or because you spilled it. But I want to ask it with a little different intonation, and you'll get maybe a little better understanding of what I'm going for. Why did water come out of the bottle? Now, if I had turned it upside down, only water would have come out, right? No other beverage would have come out of it, because water was what was in the bottle. And this bottle is a lot like us. When we're shaken, what comes out of us is what's already inside of us. Okay, so that's why it's important to know in difficult times what kind of emotions you're carrying around. What we try to repress sometimes, or what we just let build up inside of us, then will spill out sometimes in very inconvenient and unkind ways when we are shaken. As we grow to understand how important it is to recognize and label and deal with the emotions that we carry inside of us, there are certain exercises that can help in that. You'll see next, for a couple pages, there's an emotional cup model and then a worksheet that you can use to help you work through and ask yourself the kinds of emotions that you're really carrying. And that will help you to take the next step of dealing with those emotions in a healthy way. If you notice on the model, you have all of these emotions in the midst of this glass of water. You see a lot of hurt and anger in the bottom of that. And sometimes those are the hardest things to get out. But you also see antidotes. Now, if you're a Christian, we even give you some scripture notations on that as well that will help you tie your faith into that solution. But anyone can work with just the basic antidotes and understand that, for instance, for hurt, that antidote is comfort. What that means is that even if you're not able to get comfort from someone else about that area of your life, you can deal with it. Sometimes it's very hard and you might need professional help. It's wonderful when you can have someone else come alongside you and give you the support and give you that comfort. But don't feel that that's an absolute necessity. Sometimes we can self-comfort. Sometimes once we just recognize what it is that we're carrying around that's been so hurtful, we can deal with it. And we're able to progress and to build in that emotional health. The next area that we're going to look at is to be able to have a healthy model of circles of responsibility and concern. Now, what I mean by that is there's certain things that surround you that are really your responsibility. You alone are supposed to be dealing with those things. There are other things that maybe you have a shared responsibility in. But outside of that are things that you might be very concerned about, but have no control over or no effect on. So those are areas that are in your circle of concern, but not in your circle of responsibility. And being able to define in a healthy manner where that borderline is can be very helpful. It reduces a lot of our stress and our worry when we're carrying maybe even guilt and shame and things for things that we're not responsible for. So we need to look carefully at being able to define that borderline. Now, we all do want to have a very healthy circle of concern as well. That means that we're concerned about things that maybe we can't affect, and that's great. That just shows that we have compassion and empathy and that we do have concern for the rest of the world. But if it's an area where we can't impact it, we mustn't carry too much weight on that. We need to be sure that we do take care of the things that are our responsibility. And sometimes those things can affect the world. If we look at just social injustice and things that we do have a voice in and we do have some power to affect, those are our responsibilities. But to be able to determine this borderline is key to being able to hold a lot of emotional resiliency. The next areas that you see in the written material are actually very interlinked. The idea of maintaining a healthy perspective and attitude and outlook, even maintaining a sense of humor, all those things can really affect your emotional resilience. And also we want to look at a support network. There's a lot of hints in there, particularly during this time when you're quite isolated, how to access a support network, how to build that even during lockdown. And as we open up lockdown in various levels, we'll be able to interact more closely with those who do provide our support network. But make sure that you do have those relationships in place. They're really vital when times get tough emotionally to have people to support you. Then lastly, we want to look at our spirituality. As we said earlier, I realize that not all of you are going to follow a religious faith. But be certain that you don't just put aside thoughts of spirituality. We encourage everyone to ask deep questions. That's one of the reasons we do our skeptical talks every Tuesday. We look at some of the deep questions that people have about spiritual faith, and we address those and want your interaction on. So do look back on this Tuesday time slot when we post during lockdown. And then on Tuesdays, once we get back on campus, we'll resume our talks on campus each Tuesday at 1 o'clock. So look for those as well. Then lastly, we want to say just to persevere. And that's really what emotional resilience is all about. Being able to persevere, being able to withstand, and like I said, adapt and recover from difficult emotional times. But that perseverance is key. So if you are struggling, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You'll see that we have a lot of the different ways that you can reach us listed in the written material. In that PDF, we go through all of our social media and the different ways that you can connect with us. If you're on Vula, please do not comment on the video itself. That goes to UCT and not directly to us, but you can email us through Vula. And if you're on YouTube, feel free to comment. That's wonderful, and we'll get back to you there. So thank you for this week. We really appreciate that you are still checking back in with us. We hope it's been helpful, and we look forward to seeing you next week.